watch the first video in this series before watching this video. Otherwise, you won't understand the context. There's a link at the top of the description to watch the first video in the series. Now, what that video was about was how there's only 4 firearm safety rules. You need to have them memorized so that, like, if I were to ask you, hey, what are the 4 rules? Like, you can tell me them as if they're your first name. And then I also talked about how there's a bunch of other made up rules and twisting of the 4 rules and how that's not real. There's 4 rules 100% of the time that a good guy shoots at another good guy is because one or more of those 4 rules were violated. Now, if we want to make that way more basic, 100% of the time when a good guy shoots another good guy is because they aimed a gun at the wrong person and pressed the trigger. All right. So to keep it very, very, very simple, get good at not pointing your gun at the wrong person and get good at taking your finger off the trigger. Positive identification, very important too. But even when you don't have positive identification and you shoot that person, you point a gun at them and you press the trigger. So if we're talking about strictly gun handling, which is what I want to keep this video to, because I'm not talking about guns in bags or a rifle slung on you. I'm talking about gun handling. Basically, finger off the trigger, safe direction. We need to be good at that, okay? Now, this video, I'm going to talk about how you get good at that, how that applies to you preparing for a gunfight. In the next video, I'm going to show some examples of that, and I'm going to show some examples of failures in actual gunfights, and it's going to be very graphic. So, again, thinking about getting ready for a gunfight. Why do you own a gun? Why do you take training classes with a gun? Why do you practice with a gun? And why do you carry that gun every day? It's because one day you might have to shoot someone to death. You might be in a violent encounter. If you are, it's going to be very chaotic and stressful. There's going to be a lot of things you do not have control over. What you do have control over is how you prepare for that day. So you need to do so properly. Let's talk about that. Now, the purpose of training is to become competent. And training is not you going and shooting on your own. Training is someone who is good at a thing teaches you how to be good at that thing. Practice is you going and practicing those things they taught you. So now, when you're a new shooter, let's talk about this first. When you're a new shooter, you're incompetent, and it is assumed you're incompetent. So they're going to add a bunch of extra safety features, a bunch of extra risk mitigation things so that you don't shoot the wrong person, okay? Also, there's a lot of things you're just not ready to handle yet. So they start you off slow. Think about learning how to drive a car. They don't just throw you on the highway at night on an icy road, right, with drunk drivers. No, we start you in a parking lot that's empty. So you can screw up and nothing bad happens and you can learn the right way to do things. However, you need to also be good at driving on the highway at night with icy roads and drunk drivers and rain falling down and all that. You need to be good at that because even if it's not smart to go drive there, you might have to one day. It might just happen. Sorry for the cut. I really wanted to add this. The majority of gun owners, if they applied their same logic they have about gun safety to driving a car, they would never drive their car around other cars. So, thinking about approaching training too, when you first start out, yeah, there's going to be a bunch of things besides the 4 firearm safety rules. Okay? And there's going to be all these extra safety things that they throw on there because they know you're incompetent. The problem is when you stay there. Now, why do people stay there? Well, if it's your own choice, yeah, that's all you'll ever experience. Okay? Another reason is because most people who are teaching other people don't actually train. Like the majority of shooters were taught by probably their dad, their brother, their husband, or their grandpa, or something like that. That dude does not take classes, most likely. Most likely that dude does not actually train. Also, like, you should go take a class, but also you need to understand most instructors do not train. And if they do, it's like they go train with one of their friends or a guy that they totally agree with everything he says, so they want to go train with him. And that's not them acquiring new skills and learning new stuff, most likely. That's them masturbating. And that's what I see the majority of the time, is instructors don't actually train. Most people in general do not actually train. Now, because of that, they've probably only ever trained in that same environment too, where there's a bunch of added risk mitigation things to prevent someone from shooting the wrong person. And again, this all stems from incompetence. Now, there's different problems that happen with this. Of course, it makes people unclear on what is okay to do with a gun and what is not okay to do with a gun, as in the 4 firearm safety rules. They're unclear that those 4 rules, violating those, is the actual thing that leads to someone shooting the wrong person. So they're used to handling their guns in an environment where there's a firing line, there's a berm, maybe it's like only shoot once every 3 seconds like you see at lots of ranges, and there's an RSO ready to blow a whistle, you got a range flag in your pocket, all this stuff, that's not a part of the 4 rules, right? And every time they've handled their gun, there was a thing called down range. And down range was free of consequences. So this creates uncertainty in what's okay to do with a gun and what's not okay to do with a gun, because they think it has to do with like all these extra things, all these added risk mitigation factors that they're adding in. But also, there's another problem where, because the majority of people don't train, they're not that competent with a gun, and then they'll start freaking out about shit that does not actually matter. And so that will start to make the student, the shooter who's trying to learn, nervous. And when they're nervous, they're not learning anymore. They may get frustrated. Like a lot of times you see a husband trying to teach a wife, and he's just doing a fucking terrible job because he has no idea what he's saying in the first place, and he's being too hard on her and giving her too many things to think about at once. They get nervous, frustrated, and they get scared. And a lot of times, that's where people stay. And again, if that's where you're at, that's your own choice. You're choosing to stay there. Because even if that's happened to you, it's your fault if that's where you stay. Okay? Now, again, when you're first learning, yeah, sure, we'll add in some things so that it's less likely for you to shoot the wrong person. But you can't stay there, because guess what? The wrong person's probably going to put themselves in danger when you're in an actual fight. Okay? As in, there's a lot of things shouldn't be our first time doing it, right? Like, you take a class, learn how to shoot a gun, you get good at shooting a gun, so that if you have to shoot a guy, it's not your first time having to shoot your gun good, right? You practice your reloads for the same reason. Most of you do not practice any medical, but for those of you who do, you fucking practice medical so that you don't, it's not your first time having to be good at it when you're bleeding to death, because you've already gotten good at that thing. So this is where, yeah, at first, you start off with training wheels. At first, you start off in the empty parking lot. Eventually, you have to actually be good at using your steering wheel, using your brakes, using your signal, right? You have to be able to actually apply the things that you learned about when it matters, so that when you're on the highway and all the conditions are horrible, oh, and by the way, someone's trying to kill you, it's not your first time. So that's where, in training, eventually, you need to be treated like an adult. As in, there's only 4 firearm safety rules. And you have to actually apply them. Because in a gunfight, someone getting in the way of you shooting the bad guy should not be your first time. taking your finger off the trigger and pointing in a safe direction. And check it out. Basically, for gun handling, that's all you have to do to not shoot the wrong person. So really, if you think about it, that is a very basic skill everyone should be good at. Now, some people are freaking out right now. Again, if you don't have the 4 firearm safety rules memorized, you're a shit gun owner. And again, please watch the first video. Link is in the description. Now, when you are in training and being treated as an adult, certain things happen. Like you have a loaded gun on you all day. Now, majority of gun owners are actually afraid of loaded guns. I've done many videos on this, but I've had it before where I've been with a dude in class all day. Class is over, he wants to see my rifle, and I go, hey, it's loaded, leave the mag in it, do not mess with the action, just follow the 4 rules like you've been doing all day. Hand it to them, and they start freaking out. I was like, dude, what the heck? You've been fine all day. Why are you freaking out now? And I'm not trying to talk shit on students. I'm not talking shit on any of my students. These are examples. But I had a student who was a retired Army Sergeant Major, as in has training, is experienced with guns. At the beginning of class, I said, all right, we're going to have loaded guns on us all day. So after every drill, go charge up your mags, walk back up to the firing line, draw your gun at the target, get your gun loaded again, put it back on your body, right? He said, what is loaded to you? As in, what do you mean by loaded? And now what he's asking is like, does that mean round in the chamber? Or does that just mean put a mag in it, right? But, and that comes from the military. Again, I'm not blaming him, not talking shit on him. But it's fucking crazy that that's a question. Now, and again, most gun owners are afraid of loaded guns to begin with. Like, watch any YouTube review where a dude's talking about a gun he's reviewing. Watch them shoot that gun empty and immediately take the mag out and start racking it to make sure it's empty. Like, as if they didn't just shoot all the bullets out of it. So, anyways, I'm going to move on. When you're training, you're being treated like an adult, you're going to have a loaded gun on you all day. There's going to be, you're going to be allowed to handle your guns outside of just on the firing line. You just have to follow the 4 rules. Not that hard. And then also, this is going to create a lot of clarity for students. Because they're going to get very clear on what's okay to do with a gun and what's not okay to do with a gun. Because now, instead of being worried about all these things and making sure they're doing things at the right time and all that, blah, 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 and someone freaking out and yelling at them, now they just have 4 firearm safety rules to worry about. Okay? Now, getting good at those 4 rules means you have to actually apply them. As in, there should be a time in training where you have to take your finger off the trigger and point the gun in a safe direction. Because just like driving on the highway at night with icy roads and drunk drivers and rain, it shouldn't be your first time driving on the highway. Shouldn't be your first time having to do this to not hit a car or use the brakes to not hit a car, right? Your first time having to do this should not be when the bad guy is trying to kill you. How are you going to be good at it then? And people say, use blue guns, use airsoft guns, use no-shoot targets. Your brain knows the difference. Just like people will seem like they're very comfortable with guns. But if you were to hand them a loaded gun and just be like, hey, it's loaded, leave it loaded, don't mess with the action, just keep your finger off the trigger and keep it pointed up. You hand them that loaded gun with those simple directions, but they're used to doing all this other shit for safety, they're going to be nervous as hell. And a lot of times, they can't help themselves but to start unloading it, okay? And again, someone like that, who can't even hold a loaded gun without feeling nervous, how are they going to perform in violence? Okay? So, now, when you do a drill in a training class where you actually have to take your finger off the trigger and point in a safe direction, first thing, it is still a controlled environment. As in, the guy who is getting in the way of you and the target isn't trying to get shot. He's doing it slow so that you can process the information and get very comfortable with it. Unlike how it will be in actual violence. They're probably not even going to be aware of you, and they're just going to get in the way. The bad guy's probably going to put people in the way. So you need to become competent at that. They're also not making you shoot super fast. Like, that's not the point of it. The point is to only put bullets into the target and to make sure you stop sending bullets when someone's getting in the way. Okay? And again, this should not be something where it's your first time doing that in actual violence. Now, the other thing with that is those drills are 100% voluntary. As in, if you don't want to do the drill, totally fine. Totally fine. I've taken many classes that have those drills, and if someone doesn't want to do it, no one talks shit on them. And that's a rule too. Like, anyone who doesn't want to do it, totally fine. No one will say anything bad about you for it. Because it should be voluntary. Like, forcing someone into that who does not want to do it, that's not a good idea. That's not going to go well. So, when a student's doing that, they're choosing to do it. It's in controlled conditions, and they understand why they want to get good at it. They don't want their first time having to do that to be where there is no control and someone's trying to kill them. And it's the most stressful day of their life because they're not going to be good at it if they've never done it. The other thing too, because again, people will be like, you do it with blue guns, you do it with airsoft guns, you do it with no-shoot targets. When you put a blue gun in someone's hands, they don't handle it like a real gun. When you put a airsoft gun in someone's hands, they don't handle it like a real gun. And in fact, I've done a lot of downrange drills with airsoft, and guys shoot the wrong person all the time and do not care. But the guys who have done live fire downrange drills first, they do the best at those drills. And no shoot targets, like fucking even competition guys, I think you lose 10 points in USPSA. Like, no one actually cares about shooting a no shoot on cardboard. It's not real. The consequences are not real. Your brain knows the difference, okay? So now, this is stress inoculation. It's preparing you for the stressful event. And if you study psychology and stress inoculation, and there's very, very many different forms of it. So if you've only looked at one, you don't have the full picture. But there's like 3 stages to it with stress inoculation. So first, you conceptualize the fear or the stress. In this case, you breaking the 4 firearm safety rules can lead to you shooting the wrong person. And if you do shoot the wrong person, 100% it's because one or more of those 4 were violated, okay? Conceptualize the stress or the fear. Then acquire skills and practice, as in get good at not shooting the wrong person. And then there's real world application, okay? So that's where, when you actually are in the fight, because you understand it and you've practiced it, you're going to be better at it, okay? Now, again, if we want to break this down to something super simple, what are people afraid of when they see people practicing this? They're afraid that someone's not going to be able to do this. Taking your finger off and pointing in a safe direction. Very simple things, very simple skills that everyone should be good at. Now, there's also a time where following the firearm safety rules will lead to an unacceptable outcome. Now, think about it like this. If we look at all 4 rules, treat every gun as loaded. Everyone has unloaded a gun for dry fire or to hand it to someone that they don't trust with a loaded gun. It could be that in the fight you secure a gun, and the simplest thing you can do to render it safe is to unload it real quick, okay? Keep your gun pointed in a safe direction. Watch videos of hostage shots. Think about how you're really going to achieve safe direction with a hostage shot. Like, you're probably going to flag the hostage, okay? If you try not to, you're probably going to lose your opportunity to shoot. And guess what? Your fingers are probably going to be on the trigger too. Keep your fingers straight off the trigger and high out of the trigger guard until your gun's aimed at the target and you've made a conscious decision to shoot. Okay, Tooler drill, 21-foot rule, right? Guy 7 yards away with a knife about to run at you. We do that in force on force, do it from the holster, start moving, we do it the better way. But also you can test that. Okay, do I want, let's say I'll have my gun down, safe direction, finger off. And then when he starts running at me, then I'll come up and shoot. And then you can do it, well, I'll just have it like kind of a little bit more low ready. I'll just be looking over the gun, finger off. And then I'll have it aimed at him, finger off. And then I'll go ahead and put my finger on and have it aimed at him. Look at the results you get. Because we've tested it, 100%, you should be good at pointing your gun at someone who you might have to shoot and having your finger on the trigger. 100% should be good at it. Next, know your target, what's in between you and the target, around the target, and beyond. Are we going to go talk to Vietnam vets and tell them they're shitbags for shooting at the bushes? Because you can't identify what's in the bushes. You can't identify what's beyond the bushes, right? Probably you can't identify what's around or in between you and the bushes either. We're going to tell them they should have never shot at the bushes. So there are times where following the 4 firearm safety rules will lead to an unacceptable outcome. Here's my rule. If following the 4 firearm safety rules will lead to an unacceptable outcome, you need to competently and consciously break them. As in, competently, you need to be good at breaking them. Nothing bad should happen. And consciously, as in, you should be aware you're breaking them. Like, that's one of the big problems with gun handling in general is dudes will break the rules, the 4 rules, and have no idea they're breaking them. They have no idea where their gun's pointed. They have no idea their finger's on the trigger. They think they unloaded the gun. They didn't clear the actual chamber. They're not identifying their target. They're not thinking about what's beyond it. That's literally it. And why is that? It's just a result of them not training. It's a result of them never having to actually apply these skills. Now, the level you want to go to is up to you. You don't have to do any drills where you actually apply the 4 rules. No one's going to force you to do it. But it depends on you. For me, I think about how would I feel? What would the results be? What are the consequences of my failures if I do not properly prepare? And I have a wife and kids. So for me, I fucking care about them enough to actually prepare. But it's on you. Stay tuned for the next video. I'll show you some examples.